Recording. Hello, Laurel. Hello, Stacy. Welcome to Lunar Alchemy. Excellent. Hello. Bella. We need some Lunar Alchemy theme music. I love, I love the music on your 64 Doors page because it seems so mystical in there.
I know it's like a whole other universe. That's Ashley's genius. She always kind of had the magic in there.
Oh, lovely. Welcome, everybody. Nice to see some new faces. Go ahead and just so that we know that you can hear both myself and Bella, just type a Y on your chat for me to let us know that you can hear everything. Beautiful. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Chitra. Phoebe, nice to see you. Excellent. So welcome to Lunar Alchemy. This is our third Lunar Alchemy session. How many of you who are joining us have attended a prior Lunar Alchemy session? Just want to get an idea. Fernando, first time. Welcome, Fernando. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else here on their first time with Lunar Alchemy? Second time. Welcome back, Marissa. Nice to see you again. We are really excited about tonight because we are going to be delving into the shadows of fire. That's just kind of a poetic way of referring to the current transits that are going on and their effect on our evolutionary patterns. And it's just such a fun, mystical name that makes it feel like we're diving into something really, really exciting. So I want to thank all of you for joining us here tonight for our third Lunar Alchemy session. So to begin with tonight, we'll quickly introduce ourselves and begin with a short, just a short recap of what we've covered so far to catch you up. During our first two sessions, we kind of laid out the groundwork for how Lunar Alchemy works and what we're going to be doing through each lunar cycle as we engage in this process of evolution. So we'll spend just a little bit of time of that, and then we'll dive straight into the current solar and lunar transits that are affecting us and explore how that's going to impact both our energetic paths, and I'm super excited to this session dive into the physical, the DNA, the chemical structure. This is something that I'm really excited to get Bella talking about because I know this is right up your wheelhouse. So we're going to get into all of that, and then we will do a quantum healing transmission towards the end. And following that, we'll be announcing how to engage in future membership with Lunar Alchemy. So we both hope that you can all stay to the end to receive the healing transmission, to receive all of the wisdom that's going to be coming through about our current transits, and also the opportunity to continue on with us as we continue this journey of Lunar Alchemy. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is John. I am a quantum healer. I have a program called Awakening the Heart, and I'm really excited to be collaborating here with Bella, who, if you don't know me, you probably know her in this process of Lunar Alchemy. So welcome, Bella. It's really nice to have you as part of this exploration together.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Bella, would you be interested in introducing where we've been so far with this process, or how would you like to kind of jump into this?
I feel like I'm starting to understand the process, and you and I started to speak about what is lunar alchemy. Like, we know that the moon is only staying in an astrological sign for like 2.5 days. It's only staying in a gene key for a few hours, like 6-7 hours. So when we were speaking about this in the beginning, we're like, oh, how can we like run with the moon around the wheel? And if we are only going to meet once a week, like then we have missed a lot of stuff going on. And then I feel like you really kind of came to me saying, well, I think it's about that kind of the reflection of the moon, like the sun influence. And we know from human design that the sun is 70% of the neutrino stream. So we are like bathing in what the sun is like imposing in a way on the earth and on humans. So it's really about, it's the alchemy between the sun and the moon that we are speaking about. And the moon is kind of allowing us as well to look at that shadow side, or that reflected part of us, the things that maybe are under the surface. So I am excited to actually start to feeling into it that way. And we can still say, okay, last time when we spoke, the moon was in the 32. So there might be that specific day something that has to do with the shadow of failure. But it's the moon is kind of giving us like tastes, and the sun is kind of more imposing a theme that we can see, because if we look at the Raven Mandala, the sun is going to be in the same jinki, in the same gate for 6 days more or less. So that's going to be a little bit more of an influence. And also knowing that interplay sun, earth, and moon. So wherever the sun is, the earth and the wheel is on the opposite side. It's always this kind of tension, like that's where the sun is. But what happens here where we are on earth, and what I was saying last time, the earth body and the human body, for me, it's like that's really connected as well. So I feel like this journey for me so far has been starting to really feel into that influence that's there, and feeling into how to share about that influence as well, and to meet here once a week, and to actually be able to share the essence of what we feel. And I feel a lot of it as well is to a little bit role model the process, because now we are speaking about your healing work as well, and that is, we are all different and unique. So the way that that's going to work in all of us, if we allow it, if we say yes, then I feel like that is something that I am looking forward to, looking from week to week. And yeah, I mean, I'm not following a transit calendar in my own life right now, but we're speaking with Ashley about actually writing down what happens in this transit this year, to be able to see what happens on the other side of the wheel in 6 months and what happens in 12 months. So I'm curious to feel into, as we're using the quantum healing, how is that maybe accelerating or accentuating the process of allowing those shadows to come up and be transformed or be seen. So that's what I'm excited about. And that's what I feel like we've just kind of dipped our toes into and starting on that journey.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So for those of you that maybe don't know Bella, if you happen to know me, or perhaps you're just coming in, welcome to those of you that just joined us. Bella is an expert in gene keys and human design, and is doing a great deal of work in the world educating people about these cosmic influences and how they can shape our life pathways. And so what she's describing there is, how can we look at the influence of the present moment? Where is the sun in the sky, and where is the moon in the sky, and where is the earth in the sky, and how are all of these energies coming together to influence the energies that are moving through our bodies? In the last Lunar Alchemy session, which I hosted alone last Friday, we looked at the relationship between the sun and the earth on this zodiac map that shows all of the 64 gates that exist in the gene keys. And we looked at a map of the human design system that shows where each of those gates exists in our energy centers. And we looked at how these influences can come into our experience, activating specific archetypes. and influencing how we are working those energies into our experience, integrating them into our greater selves and our experience. So I'm very grateful to have Bella here to help guide us with understanding the positions of these cosmic bodies. In Lunar Alchemy, we're primarily only looking at the sun, the moon, and the earth, and the particular gates that the sun is passing through in the moment. Now, I love that this is the first, even though I hosted a session on Friday, this is the first whole Lunar Alchemy session that we've had an opportunity to do in this new lunar year. Because if you've been following along, last Thursday, February 11th, here in the US, was Lunar New Year. And to begin Lunar New Year, the sun and the earth happened to be passing through the transits, the gates of two of my primary gene keys, my life's work and my evolution, that are part of my what's called my activation sequence. And in the last session, if you were here, we discussed where the earth is currently located in gate 29. And tonight we're going to be talking about where the sun is and how that influence is affecting us. So I'm really excited to be doing this. By the way, our previous two sessions are available. You can watch on YouTube if you want to go back and check those out. And that will help fill out any of the gaps if you're not following absolutely everything that we're sharing tonight. So maybe it's details about gene keys or human design. We do have those resources available, and I'll be sharing those with all of you after tonight's session. So you want to begin, Bella? Shall we get started?
Yeah, do you want to share the chart for just a moment to get a snapshot, or where do you want to start?
I would love to look at it, because I tend to be I'm a good audio learner, but if I have like the information coming in and I can look at something, it makes a lot more sense to me, especially when some of these concepts are a little bit abstract. Do you happen to have that map handy?
I can pull it up. Yeah, I'll pull it up.
That would be great. So what we're going to be seeing here in a moment is kind of the zodiac map and where all of the celestial bodies are in relationship to that. And what we're going to see are the 64 gates in relationship to that zodiac. And for those of you who know the I Ching, the 64 gates of the gene keys is directly drawn from the wisdom of the I Ching. So
I need ability to share screen.
Let's see.
Or maybe just make me co-host, and then I will be able to do it.
Let's see how I can do that.
Or make me host. You can always request the host back.
There you go, Bella. All right, I'm not the most technologically savvy person on the planet, so thank everyone for bearing with my slowness. Go ahead, Bella. What are we looking at here?
So here we are looking at that snapshot of the sky. So this is a geocentric. So here we are looking at if we had the Earth in the center. And we are looking at all these symbols that are the symbols for different planets. So what you were just saying, John, is that we're looking at the sun. This is a symbol for the sun. This is the symbol for the Earth. And here is the 30 and the 29, like you were speaking about. And we're also looking a little bit at the moon. So what maybe is new for some of you here is that you kind of maybe know the constellations in the sky of the 12 signs, but you might not know exactly that there's actually this inner wheel or outer wheel, depending on how you want to see it, where we are putting the 64 hexagrams or the 64 oracle cards, sometimes is what I say, that the sages in China put together over thousands of years is kind of wisdom cards, book of changes, where they had these different chapters telling us how the elements, how the seasons are changing. So wherever you go in the wheel, you can go, okay, we go to Pisces, 6 degrees, that is going to correspond to some hexagram, some gate, some gene key. So these numbers that are from 1 to 64, they are the hexagrams in the I Ching, they are the gates in human design, and they are the gene keys in the gene keys. So it's really, we can use the same. The 39 can be the 39th hexagram, the 39th gene key, or the 39th gate. So that is what we are looking at here. And I like that because it's more precise. If we say, oh, the sun is somewhere in Aquarius, but there is such a big span, and Aquarius is changing from the beginning of the 1st degree until the end of the 30th degree. When we look at a gate, we have this like 5.7 day span, and we can really kind of tune into that energy. So that is what is important when it comes, or important, what is, I feel, a good way of looking at the transits. And there are many ways you can go and kind of learn about that archetype. So one thing could be the 64 doors, where we simplify it. It could be Richard Rudd's book about the gene keys. It could be something in human design where you learn about the gates. So that's what I like to do. And then the moon, as we were saying, is going to move fast. But here, it's always interesting to also, as we are tuning in together, to include that moon that happens to be in the eternal child, that happens to be that kind of first step of the mandala. When we look at Aries, that's the sign that it starts. There's some kind of new and fresh and innovative energy that's here. And then we have this powerful combination of the 29 and the 30. Here we have rapture, desire, kind of passion. In the I Ching, is made up of fire, like just complete fire. Usually it's 2 elements, and we have 8 gates of all the 64. There's just 1 element. So here we happen to have fire. The earth, however, this is what you can see in the opposition. It's water over water. So here we have like the water goddess and the fire starter, and they are, the sun and the earth are kind of looking at each other, the fire starter and the water goddess, and they have that interplay. So how does it feel to be in those those energies this week? And what I also think is interesting, and this is maybe what we're going to go in more in the future into, but here when we look at the codon ring that we are in now, we are in the 30, that's the sun. This is the codon ring of purification. This has to do with relationships. So this is kind of purifying the low frequency of desire of relationships and learning to listening. So kind of going from a more reactive interaction to actually being able to listen wholeheartedly, to be able to commit wholeheartedly, which is the 29, to be able to find that kind of like the passion of going into the faith, completely saying yes to the experience with the other. And this is on an even genetic cellular level. We even see the amino acid that this codon, that is the protein, the amino acids that has to do with this codon ring in the DNA. So that's another way of looking at it.
Yeah, so I would love to explore that codon ring a little bit later on, but just for now, as we're looking at the sun there in gate 30 that you can see in Aquarius, it's the little circle with the dot in it. That stays there for a period of, you said, almost 6 days, like 5.7 days, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that's just going to move around this wheel all year long, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so during this process of the movement of the sun, all day, every day, as the sun rises and falls, it's going to be shining these different energies of these confluences of the elements for us to kind of receive and process and use for our creative power. So you said in the 30, in the I Ching, it's fire over fire. So so can you talk a little bit more about maybe the archetype that starts in our personalities, and how those energies kind of manifest in us in different ways depending on the frequency that we are able to harness?
Yeah, and I really like to look at the body graph, because the body graph is the same thing, but it shows how the energies are moving in the body. And it shows like the centers, because they're the chakras or the centers where each gate is moving. So when we look at the 30, it's in the emotional center. And this is a lot of like what I feel we're speaking about also in the cool conversations with Simone, the architecture of the soul. We were speaking about these deep different layers from low frequency to a higher frequency. And as humans right now, it feels like we are very much purifying this emotional center. So we are not completely swayed by our emotions, but actually we can see the emotion kind of moving into the heart, or the emotions getting help from our intuition, our instinct, so that it doesn't become this kind of complete turmoil of reaction. For example, we were actually in that key not long ago, the 49, that is the low frequency of reaction. So in this center, we have turbulence, we have dishonor, we have weakness, conflict, reaction, victimization, and desire. This is like
So
a
those
soup.
so that's the emotional center in our body, where in
Exactly.
this map, this is where we kind of process the emotions, and each of those numbers represents a different energy of how we do that. Yeah. So
Yes. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so go ahead.
And what's interesting then, when the 30 is when the 30 is activated, and we also see that the other side, so we have the 30 here in the emotional center, and then in the root center we have the 41. When we have connections, like both those centers get defined, so we have a definition in that emotional center. So whether in your own chart this center is activated or defined or colored in or not, it's going to be a strong influence this week. And since we have other activations, the emotional center as well, the reaction one and the dishonor one, I feel like this is a week to feel into these things. We were also saying in the codon ring of purification, we have 13, that listening from the heart. So that's always there, as that's also there as a possibility. I would say that the 30 is that desire, it's that fire, it's that passion, it's that kind of the fates of like, where is our desire taking us? Or if we don't have no fire, where is it not taking us? And it has to do with the future, or like it has to do with experience, it has to do with the dreams, it has to do with the fuel of our like our fuel of wanting to experience. And if we would speak more about human design and circuitry, we would see that this is kind of where sparks comes. We have this desire to experience something, and then that's going to lead to a lot of different things in our lives. But here we have that spark, that's desire to initiate, to feel, and often it has to do, emotions have to do with intimacy, have to do with like it's that kind of emotional tribal feeling to it when we are speaking about the emotional center.
So in this emotional center, that number 30, where the sun is, it's getting kind of turned on in each of us. And that energy that's getting turned on is that like drive, that desire for passion, and that sort of feeling of, it's almost like a like like an authentic motive, like inner motivation, like when we're inspired to take action or go after something or want something, it's like something that comes up naturally in us. Does that sound about how that's functioning?
Absolutely. And I feel like when I'm looking at those numbers, and we know that the 13 is part of the codon ring of purification, and we see that the 13 is in Jupiter, which is about expansion. Like it's almost like a portal right now where we can go in when, like, if we kind of lean in and surrender to whatever that 30 is. So the low frequency is desire, kind of a desire that pulls us. It's not completely from the heart, but more kind of pulling us. And then the gift frequency is lightness. It's like when we're not pulled, but we can kind of feel that, like, that feeling of like living life to the fullest in experience. And the highest frequency is rapture, that raptures, that it's like you don't need to go anywhere. The rapture is already here, you can say. So together with the 13 in Jupiter that is activated, Jupiter is about expansion. There is something here with that codon ring of purification. What is possible right now in relationships? What's possible in the way that we come together? And that there might be an opening for listening, an opening for having the higher frequencies of that 30. So that's kind of cool when you're bringing in the codon rings to see, interesting that we have the 13. They're powerful archetypes, the Sun and Jupiter. They are both very, very big, and they are here kind of coming together and telling us, well, this is a portal for coming into new way of relating, in a way that maybe is not just, it's coming back into the G center that has to do with identity, that has to do with direction, it has to do with not looking at love, following our desires from the outside, but from a place of, inner listening and openness.
So you were talking about the different frequencies that the energy can come through. And when I'm looking at this emotional center, okay, here's this number 30 that's in there that's got this sort of like fiery, passionate thing. But if I'm running a low frequency vibration through this part of my energy system, you said that's going to show up as desire. How is it that desire transforms into the gift of lightness, by, a lot of times when we go through our lives, we may be in a situation where, like, man, this is, I feel like low energy. The people I'm around don't inspire me. Like, we're feeling low frequency energy. How is desire related to that? And then how does, if we increase that frequency, put ourselves into an experience of higher vibration, how does that transform into lightness?
What I feel we're speaking about always, John, is that you can't really run away from a low frequency, because trying to run away, here we see repressive qualities or reactive qualities over serious or flippant. It's like when you try to run away from it, it's just going to go in one direction or another. So that's not really the way. The shadow always have something to show us, and these are the shadows coming up to the surface. So I would say there is something to learn there, and there's a portal. Of course, there could be a way as well. Like, it's more about awareness and a tracking. Where am I right now? So here, if you feel obsession, nervousness, hunger, can't get rid of your desire, eternal trial and error and just getting burnt, then it's more about, okay, this is showing up in my life. And then not run away, but be okay with that. And then the other thing that we're doing, so this is the website of the 64 doors. It can be to see, can I take on the costume of the higher frequency of the 30? So what if today I take on the costume of finding inside of me the passion and the drive, the desire to feel, whether, like that can also be the desire for experience. It can be a higher frequency than just like, oh, I don't want to feel this, like, so there, for me, there is a way of finding the positive attributes that are already inside of yourself, but not from a way of wanting to run away from the shadow, but more as a discovery of everything that is. Like we were saying last time, we're humans, in our heart, but we are animals in our body. And that desire, the lower chakras, that primal thing is part of us. And then the creator energy. So if I want to take on the costume of the firefighter, it's like, he's kind of going to want to speak through me, right? So the awareness of those different parts of ourselves coming into one and being part of our experience. And as humans, for me, one of the things I have had to make friends with is to be okay with being animal, human, and creator, and not always being able to choose my experience, but surrender to it. And when I surrender, that's really that kind of lightness that I'm like, okay, then I'm riding it instead of it riding me. That's my experience.
So what this is kind of suggesting to me is that and by the way, just so everybody understands, this gene key of gene key 30, or the gate, or in the I Ching, this is right in my main gene key sequence. So I feel pretty related to everything that we're talking about here. So if there's anybody who's gone through an experience of eternal trial and error, it's like, like you have a desire for something. And I know what this is like because this is my life. You have a desire for something and it's almost out of reach somehow. And you're like, okay, I got to find out a way to connect with this thing that I want. And so I'm going to try this thing to see if it'll connect. And then I try it, and guess what? I don't get the connection. I don't get the fulfillment for that desire. So I have to try something else, and then try something else, and then try something else. It's almost like it's a never-ending experiment of how the heck do I ever connect with the things that I really, really want? And that's assuming that I've already figured out what it is I really, really want. But so let's say I'm in that experience. What it sounds like you're suggesting is that some of those positive attributes are just as accessible from that state of being, meaning we don't have to destroy the shadow frequencies in order to experience the gift frequencies. We don't have to shut out the part of ourselves that becomes obsessive from time to time, or overly nervous, or that desire kind of goes into a hunger expression. Like when I was in my late 20s and I was really waking up to the spiritual possibilities of humanity, I had this insatiable hunger to consume information. And I read thousands upon thousands of pages of books. And it's like, after a while, it's kind of like, well, when am I going to read the book that satisfies my desire? It's not gonna happen. Like, there's never gonna be a moment when I'm gonna pick up a book and go like, oh, this is it. I found the one. And for me, this is like in the symbology of the fire over fire. This is like a wildfire. When, I live in Colorado, there's wildfires in Colorado. If you live in California or any other part of our country that is affected by these wildfires, you understand that these fires, they expand at an incredible rate. They just go over tons of acres. They get blown from trees to trees. The fire doesn't even it just has a mind of its own, and it consumes everything. That's kind of like the shadow in action for this particular gate that we're in right now. So whether right now you feel really connected to this idea of your passions, your desires, seemingly out of nowhere. I mean, the sun got into this particular gate last Friday, and so we've only been here for 4 days, something like that. Regardless of whether or not you're experiencing it as this runaway wildfire, or maybe you had a pint of ice cream and you just can't seem to get enough from, like that last bite isn't enough. You have to eat the whole thing, or maybe even after that, it doesn't feel like enough. This is the shadow frequency of this particular influence that is affecting how we experience things, our lives. But there was that whole slew of positive attributes, which strangely enough, I don't know what all of those were that are on there, but it was like playfulness, and maybe Bella, you could talk about some of those positive attributes that kind of shift it into that more gift frequency.
Yeah, so passion, drive, daring, compassionate humor, playfulness, intensity, right timing, ability to laugh at yourself, and lightness of being. And I wanted to just make it like kind of put it into context. So for you, John, you're a 6'2", and you have these the 30 and 29 in your personality, sun and earth. And you, as a 6'2", we know that the 31st year in a person who has a 6 in their profile, it's going to be trial and error. And it's a third line phase is what we say. And a third line is very much like the third chakra, and the third chakra is about desire, the third chakra is about fire. So it's almost like you had this triple thing. You have the I Ching that has twice the element of fire, plus your 31st years were very much that third line energy. Although you're a 6th line, the first phase is a third line. So for you to have experienced that, it's the perfect, way that your life was here to play out. And as a 6th line, you still have a bit of that in you, because you are here to become wise about trial and error. So I feel like that's really, really cool in the context to see, this is what we learn when we can zoom in to the personal and out to the collective. And the other thing that I kind of feel right now, because we are speaking a little bit about the DNA and about the codon ring, right now you have that Jupiter in the 13, and the 13 is part of that codon ring. So, I mean, I don't even feel like you need to know about the number. I would just kind of ask for the strength of Jupiter, an expansion of Jupiter, knowing that whatever is burning in you right now, it is for your purification, it is for your expansion. And it is for you to be able to come back to that identity, the diamond of the self, the love from the inside in. So that feels very alive for me, although we were not concentrating on Jupiter. It's like he's kind of knocking on the door saying, use me, because I am all about expansion. And we know from the Jinki frequency, the shadow is very contracted. So expansion is helping us to feel into that passion, drive, the higher frequencies, the playfulness. And it is through listening in and through listening out. The 13 it's the gate of listening through love. So can you love yourself even when you have had that extra pint of ice cream, even when you can't get over your ex and it feels like it's burning you, that he blocked you on the phone, or it's like these are the things. Can you have love for yourself? Well, that's going to lead to purifying that part of you that is not helping you, and to open up a portal for you for a new way of relating, for a new way of moving through the world, for a new way of living your fire. That for me seems super alive right now. And it is a new start, because the moon right now as we speak is in that third gene key, Aries energy, individuation, me in the world, my identity. So what kind of identity are you going to create? The low frequency of the 3 is chaos. The higher frequency is that eternal child, playfulness, innocence, innovation energy. So that's the possibility. It's not right now, it doesn't feel like being stuck when we look at the chart. It feels like this portal for a new beginning, very, very strongly, looking at the moon, looking at Jupiter, looking at the sun and the earth gates.
Yeah, so one of the first things you said about my experience of trial and error is kind of getting me in contact with growing this body of wisdom, right? And so these experiences of the shadow, it seems like we can look at as these opportunities to grow in wisdom. We're feeling burnout, we're feeling like we can't ever quite get it figured out. It's always trial and error, or we become maybe obsessively focused on a particular aspect of our life that feels like it just keeps getting smaller and smaller, and the opportunities to get what we want is ever decreasing. And I want to shift over to talk about the codon ring a little bit. First of all, what that is, but you mentioned within this codon ring, and we'll discuss what that is. There's the energy of the planet Jupiter, and the planet Jupiter is all about expansiveness. It's all about joy. It's all about luck. It's all about some of these qualities that when I think about those qualities, Those are like my ticket out of these shadow frequencies if I'm starting to feel trapped. It's like that obsessive quality where things like keep narrowing in and getting smaller and smaller. Having some of that expansive joy to open things up, it brings me into this state where I look at those things that I was desiring, that I was having passion for, that I was obsessing over, that I was engaged in a nonstop trial and error to achieve. I begin to see that I was holding on to those possibilities very, very tightly. And the more that I focused on trying to get that desire satisfied, the tighter my grip got.
Mhm.
But when I can bring in some of that Jupiter energy, that expansiveness, a little bit of that joy, that playfulness, all of a sudden my grip becomes very light. I'm not holding on to it so much anymore. And in my experience, moving through that process is what allows me to feel the movement of energy when I'm in creative flow. And strangely enough, when I have that light touch, when I'm not trying to guide so hard, when I'm just allowing things to be while holding this sort of sense of the passion that I have, then that creative process, it feels so much more natural, and it just brings me so much closer to having a feeling of satisfaction of those desires that started in the first place, you know. So it's really cool. So Bella, I want to ask you, can you describe what the codon ring is, like, even outside of the context of where we are right now, but what is a codon ring and how does it relate to our body?
I would say this is like a bigger thing that we would need kind of a whole webinar on. And I would
Mm.
say to everybody, go to the gene keys and search for gene keys, codon rings. Like here, I feel like the sentences I wanted to read. The codon rings are biological machinery behind what the ancients called karma. The manner in which they are interlocked forms the geometric unified field underpinning humanity. And as human DNA mutates in order to carry the higher frequencies that are coming with a great change, the 21 codon rings will bring humanity into the biological realization of its true nature in unity. So it's
Wow.
really kind of going into the really the smallest part of, like, the coding of humanity. And it's very interesting because when we speak about human design, we speak about the program, and kind of the freedom comes when we realize that we're just part of a matrix. And when we stop resisting the matrix, we can be what we are, because we, like you say, we're not holding on to possibilities. We are not trying to run away from the desire. We're just like, oh, a program, and I'm moving in a matrix. As I'm moving in a matrix, I don't have to react. I don't have to resist. I'm just moving into the matrix. That's the human design way. When we speak of godheads that are connecting to the codon rings, like the godheads, like different gods that can be chosen, that the founder of human design chose. Now we are in the codon ring of Kali, no, sorry, in the godhead of Kali. Kali is she's breaking down everything. She's stepping on Shiva and, like, cutting off his head. She's that destruction, the feminine, dark feminine, destructive energy that kills everything that doesn't serve anymore. But she's very tribal and very emotional in her way of being, the way we speak about the godhead. And in human design, where it's more like, okay, we're under the influence of Kali, and this is how the program runs us, and there's nothing we can do.
Mm.
We know that the gene keys are a little bit more spiritual. So here instead, we're saying that there's like a program in how our DNA replicates. And that's been like that for the ancestry, like that's the way it's been. And then sometimes there's a mutation to better functioning. And that is the way we're looking at in the gene keys. Like our DNA is replicating in a certain way, but as we are allowing more light to pass through us in our DNA, as the DNA is becoming more crystalline and less carbon, then we are mutating into a higher expression of that godhead, or that that coding. And there, so that's the way that I, in a simple way, and that this is happening. The program is evolving. We are not slaves under the program. In human design, it's like, oh, the program is there, but we can kind of find a way of being free. Gene keys are not putting that limitation. It is a DNA that is functioning a certain way, but with mutation, with an awareness, there is a constant evolution. They're allowing us to live on a higher frequency. And the codon rings are giving us the themes. So the themes of right now is that codon ring of purification. Then we have the codon ring of union, of the codon ring of light. So you could say there are the 21 themes that are like that we are passing through. They're allowing us to mutate different parts of the program so that we can express them, not in desire, for example, but in lightness, not in discord, but in discernment. So that's like that's the best way I would explain it very fast. But here
Yeah,
you can go in reading about it and go in to look more in depth. And we might go in more in depth as well, in the coming weeks, John.
well, I would love to look at like how the particular codon ring right now is related to the gate, but I want to just kind of like hear what you said and maybe say it from my perspective.
Right. Yeah.
Is that the codon ring, it's like this energetic template that provides an opportunity for our physical bodies to transform, to be able to carry higher frequency spiritual energy inside us and through us. Does that sound close to what we're talking about? And
Yeah.
and so in order to do that, one of the things that a lot of spiritual teachers don't spend a whole lot of time speaking about, and this is one of the reasons that I absolutely love Richard Rudd's contribution through the gene keys, is that in order to run higher frequency energy through the body, the physical body has to be capable of running that energy. Just like if you've got a high powered light socket and you try and stick a little bitty light bulb in there, it'll just go. But if you get a big enough light bulb to go into this really powerful light socket, you can you can light up the room or the whole city block, or however wide that light can illuminate. And in order to do that, we have to transform some of the energy carrying tissues and particles inside our bodies that are related to proteins, that are related to the DNA structure, all of those types of things. So, Bella, is there a way that this current codon that is being, you said that 13 is on the other side of the 30. Could we just take a quick look at that to see how that relates to a process of the body?
I feel like there is a process of the body, but I would say that for me, this codon ring relates a lot to the emotional body. And I would have to look into more on the physiological plane, glutamine, exactly what it does in the body, in order to be able to say exactly how, in a physiological sense, it works. I see this codon ring very much like it's the portal into the seven sacred seals, which is the mystery school of the gene keys, which is how we dissolve, transmute, mutate the collective core wounds. That's the seven sacred seals. So this is really a lot like, can you stand in a way the intensity of the 30 and the 13, the discord, that there is no reciprocity, there's no listening, that discord that you feel, you listen to everything that's ever been said and everything that's being said right now, and you read between the lines and you're like, this can never end well. That's the 13, the discord of the low frequency of the 13. And then the 30 that just feels like, that you are either flippant or over serious, like there's no way of being in the center. If you can stay with that intensity, there is a portal. And for me, it very much has to do more with the emotional body. And I'm sure that looking at glutamine, we could, we could absolutely tie it into that. But yeah, that's the way that I would say, that's the portal that I see a possibility. And then the physiological part, I wish, we would invite somebody in. We are looking at that actually with the portals of deconditioning, to have somebody to study deeply. And some amino acids is easy for me. I'm like,
Sure.
tryptophan, for example, the hunger of the 35, that makes total sense with the brain chemistry and all that. And there is really something intuitive and natural once you know what these amino acids do in the body, so that you can see that the emotional body, the physical body, the mental body, they are all very much interconnected with each other.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about that, and I'm curious about how this relates to those seven seals. Around some of this energy of the gate is simply around purification, you know. And when I think about, like, okay, well, what do I do? How do I purify my body? I mean, last fall I just did a 20-day water fast, and that's like and you said intensity. That's an intense experience of purification going on, and like the ability to stick with it. It like creates a transformation in how we experience our lives, like that intensity in the body for that period of time. It really shifted how I was relating with my body. It really shifted all of my experiences. Interestingly, when I came out of that fast, I was filled with a rekindling of passion around food. Like for a long time, I'd kind of been having that, for most of my life, I've had some form of passion around food. And for a long period of time, it was starting to diminish. And I was starting to get bored. I was bored with eating. I was bored with food. And I was like, God, I'm sick of eating all the time. I wish I didn't have to eat. And then after 20 days of water fasting, you know, I was all excited about like it was a little bit of time before Thanksgiving, so I got all excited about all these recipes that I could do and things that I could make for celebrating the holidays, and all the foods that I could eat. I just had that passion like turned right on. So it was really just an interesting experience for me, that seems to, like, it looks at this process of purification and how does it relate to this experience of passion and desire. Like, I came out of that with this passion for food that was completely like let free, and not necessarily in a bad way. Like I wasn't, it wasn't like the potato chips and Ben and Jerry's type of passion. It was just more of the, man, I'm just excited about food, about this process of eating that we have to do every day, or in whatever capacity we relate with that.
And
So
that first stage too, because for all of us that have done fasting, it's kind of horrible after half a day. Like, when you're over those 6-7 hours of eating, and you're like, well, the whole body, the whole system tells you need to eat. So it's really like being that burning sensation of desire, wanting to eat. And when you actually stay with it, there's a portal to kind of the purity that you feel when you're outside. Like, I feel like outside of the matrix of eating, like you even see like socially what an institution eating is. So when you're outside of that, you can feel enormous lightness. And then, like you say, then when you're reintroducing it again, it's in a new way. And that's exactly that, in a way, the shift from the low frequency of not having a choice, in a way, to the lightness of having a choice and having the joy of it. So that's such a perfect way of like, and a perfect example of this.
yeah, thank you for reflecting that, because that really brings it perfectly home to what is going on here. Is that, if we're able to garner this energy of passion and bring it into this sort of cleansing purification process, and during that purification process allow ourselves to move through that transformational portal, we can then come back to, whether it's eating or our jobs or our relationships or whatever it is that we're desiring to purify, we can come back to it with a new approach and carry the higher frequencies that we were able to access through that purification process. And in that way, that transformation into a higher frequency expression, it happens naturally. And we may bring that higher frequency expression and maintain that for the rest of our lives or our experience or whatever, or we may have a bit of a trial with it and shift back into more of those shadow patterns until we are ready to fully evolve into that next stage of expression and really center ourselves there, ground ourselves there, and just have our beingness come from that higher frequency standpoint. I feel like there's such, in so many spiritual processes, there's such a focus on how important it is to be high vibration. That, like, if you can't maintain a high frequency, you're a bad human. Or, and one of the things I think is wonderful about this Gene Keys process is that there is none of that judgment around expressing those shadow frequencies. When people talk about doing shadow work, oftentimes they're like, "Oh man, I just found this horrible shadow that has been this monster hiding in the cellar, and it came out, and it was ugly, and I just want to kill it and get rid of it," and I just feel like that isn't gonna get us to the next stage of evolution as a humanity together, and especially because we can look at other people and go like, man, that person's running the shadow frequency. Look at how terrible they are. And it just creates so much separation and conflict where we could actually be having collaboration and expansion of our experiences by kind of being willing to recognize that this shadow gift and transcendent states are all part of one evolutionary process,
Mm-hmm.
So do you have
I'm
any other
curious
thoughts?
here. No,
What's
go on.
that?
I mean,
I
I'm
was just
curious here. Go on.
I was going to ask if you had any other thoughts about the fire, the archetype that we're working with, or this process of that we're describing of like purifying those lower frequencies and allowing this lightness to rise into experience so that we can bring those higher frequencies in.
For me, where I'm coming back to all the time, like when we're speaking about that 13 that's listening through love, it's like Jupiter is there right now. He's going to move on. So it's, for me, that's the portal thing that really comes to me like, okay, Jupiter is in 13.1, that very first line of listening through love. So are you able to listen through love to your own process? And like what you were just saying, John, it's not only about your self-judgment, it's also when you look at somebody else. Are you falling into discord in that listening? Or can you actually have the discernment of saying, okay, I'm noticing that is probably, you can notice. It's not hard, it's not wrong to notice. I'm noticing an expression of the shadow frequency, but that doesn't mean that you close down or you close off in discord. It more means about that listening through love. That's really where we are right now, what's I'm becoming aware of, and what keeps speaking to me tonight, and just saying, okay, wow. And maybe because for me that 13 is my radiance, so it's my design, sun in human design. It's, yeah, I can feel the power of that. And we come back to this neutral witness. Like, are you able to stay in the center and see those expressions of your animal, of your human, of your creator, to move in the world, and the same with others, and be that, like, that is the whole Buddha thing. But the way that I'm feeling into it now, Buddha kind of feels far away of mindfulness. Like, this feels like a true way of actually how I can do it in my life. Like I can check myself. Am I judging or am I listening in acceptance? Doesn't mean that I don't have discernment. Just means that I'm not, and I don't have to separate myself. I don't have to tense up. I can actually be relaxed in what I'm seeing. And in that relaxedness, even if it's intense, I know that there is a portal that's opening of possibilities, like you're saying. I'm not grasping the possibility. I just have the awareness that if I stay with it, if I am in discernment and not in discord, there is possibilities that are right in front of me.
Yeah, beautiful. So uh, I want to make sure that we um, have some time for the quantum healing.
And that's my curiosity. Like that's what I was going to ask before, like because I heard you speak about the process and the gene key process, and my curiosity is if you can just share a little bit of how can this quantum healing process help us in this process that is more general that we're speaking about, because that's kind of the reason for coming together as well, to actually kind of move together.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I've been really drawing on, one of the things that actually really inspired me as we came together to create this process of lunar alchemy. Um, I'll just share that this was an intuition that I had, that I needed to create something around this. And usually I'll get that intuition and then I have to figure out what the heck I'm supposed to do because I don't know anything about it. But I've been reading some of the work of Rudolf Steiner, who was an occultist, an Austrian esoteric occultist who was very active in the early 20th century. And some of you may be familiar with the legacy of his work through the Waldorf schools. These are schools that are based upon the teachings of Rudolf Steiner. Biodynamic agriculture was essentially the process of that was laid out in a series of lectures that he gave to some farmers in Europe in the 1920s who were very concerned about the introduction of unnatural chemicals into the planet. So anyways, his spiritual side is very, very deep. And he describes the creation of the human being as a series of forces that are coming together. And as these forces are interacting with each other, they're going through this process of evolution where one force of consciousness affects another creation of consciousness in a particular way, which causes that consciousness to expand into a new area of expression. And that eventually, that process of evolution ended in, it's not ending, of course, but it created our solar system with the sun at the center of it, and our planet Earth revolving around it, and each of us as human beings in individual physical bodies on the planet. But from a spiritual standpoint, we are not free of these spiritual influences that have caused us to be what we are. For instance, we require nutrition. That is the energy of the sun that is being absorbed by the plant life of the earth. And then we have to consume either the plants, the fruits, or the animals that live on the planet who are consuming and transforming those energies. So we're all consuming solar energy from one standpoint or another in order to continue our lives. And in this same way, we have a direct and deep effect from the moon onto us. And so these are forces that are moving through us and upon us in a way that is actually quickening our evolutionary path. Meaning, if you did nothing but woke up every day and went about your business of survival, just by nature of the sun rising and the moon rising every day and every night, we would go through a process of evolution, maybe very unconsciously and maybe particularly slowly or gradually, as is more maybe a more accurate way to put it. But if we take our awareness and become aware of these forces as they are working through us, and then we use our intention to receive certain frequencies into our energetic bodies that can help to elevate the frequency that is moving through us of those energies that have been activated. It allows us to expand in new ways that may not have been possible before. Many people are aware of the process of spiritual development where you examine your belief systems. What are the beliefs that are serving you? What are the beliefs that are holding you back? Can you change your own beliefs, and how does that change your reality? Well, this is simply one layer of one aspect of our mental bodies that we interact with in order to create our reality. When we use a quantum healing to work on the movement of energy through our entire system, we're not just working with one layer and one part of that layer. We're actually working with the entire source of our being. And so when we look at this idea of, okay, how can we transform the energies of fire through this gate 30 in our energetic system? When we release the types of attachments that we have to certain shadow or low frequency behaviors, because all of us, we're all attached to a million different things. There's not very many human beings on the planet that could accurately say, yeah, I have no attachments. We're all attached. and and we're all going to keep being attached. But our experience are is elevated when we can allow those attachments to be released from the elements that are less resonant with our eternal being, and allow our relationships with everything around us to create an expression that has a higher frequency nature. So when we take the reflection of the moon, which is illuminating this low frequency vibration of the fire force, the force of spiritual fire in our experience, we can use frequency to expand that shadow frequency to allow it to transform into a more resonant expression with our own inner eternal being. And so that is how quantum healing really accelerates this entire process. The contemplation of these energies, just contemplating the gene keys, is going to cause this process to occur. Just like I said, if you just wake up and go about the business of survival, you're going to go through this evolutionary process one way or another. The question is, what experience do you want to have in that journey? And in a time that we're in right now, this movement into a new age, the Aquarian age, some people are recognizing that we're moving into the age of Aquarius. Some people are calling it the golden age. Some people are saying we're moving into fifth dimensional Earth. Some people are, there's a lot of different perspectives. But what it's suggesting is there's a massive opportunity for expansion in our own personal paths. And by focusing in this way, we can harness the energies of the forces of the cosmos as they're working on our being, and expand and allow those elements that we have maybe perhaps in our unconscious ways prevented the full potential of our being from being expressed. We can have that be released through these frequency healing transmissions and introduce the frequency of that higher frequency expression as it's coming through us, so we can ride that wave into a new expression and a new experience, and therefore a new reality for all of us. So hopefully that made some sense. Because sometimes when I'm talking about that, I'm like, whoa, this sounds really out there.
I mean, that's the cool thing, hearing about it. But then I feel you and I are all about like the body and embodiment. So hearing about it is one thing, and that's going to help you when you're experiencing it to kind of tune in even more. So
Yeah.
that's the cool thing with these things. We're not just talking, we're actually also experiencing.
Yeah. So let's jump into that. What I'm going to do in a minute, if you haven't received a quantum healing transmission with me before, I'm just going to ask you to close your eyes and relax. There's nothing that you have to do. You do not have to be in a particular state in order to receive the frequencies that are going to be transmitted. And the way that this functions is I am not going to interfere in your energetic body in any way whatsoever. I'm going to simply send you a little frequency package. And that's going to be delivered to you through the spiritual mechanics of the planet. And when you receive that spiritual package, you, as well as your inner eternal being, your higher self, are going to know exactly what to do with this frequency package and utilize it in the way that is best for you. Meaning, if there's anything in this package that is not right for you, you and your eternal self will simply leave that aside, and it will not affect you in any way. So this transmission is coded for the highest possible frequency transmission for you to use in the best possible way for you. So that's what we're going to do. And while the code is being activated, I may speak about what's going on a little bit, but after a time for the group, it will be completed, and I will then give an integration command to assist you with integrating all the frequencies, and then we'll all come back together, and we can share our experience. If you have questions about what we've covered or about what you experienced in the transmission, you can ask it at that time. Bella and I will also be offering an opportunity tonight for you to participate in solar membership with Lunar Alchemy, so that you can continue this evolutionary pathway with us. And I'll give you the details on that when we come back. So go ahead and just get comfortable. Take a nice deep breath and let it go. And you can feel this as like a sigh, a sigh of relief. Just have a nice, big, deep breath in and just sigh it out, like you're just letting go of anything that stresses you out or gives you a feeling of conflict or of unease. And just feel easy in your body and lightly close your eyes. I'm going to now be connecting to you through the quantum field and contacting the expanded aspects of your inner being. And I feel that connection as a descending flow of energy through the crown of my head. It's very, very tingly. And that's because there's a lot of high frequency people in this group. And I can see there's a great amount of excitement around this interaction of energy that we're engaging in. All right, I'm going to initiate the command, and you can just remain in a calm space and feel what happens in your body. If you don't feel anything, don't worry about it. Um, Everything is working perfectly for you in the best possible way for you. And if you have any emotions rise in you, just allow those to clear as they come into your awareness. It is commanded in the name of divine loving presence and by the golden liquid realms and alchemical powers that the violet flame absolute purification code be used for each person here to clear all attachments to the patterns of behavior, feelings, and thoughts which seek to satisfy the unquenchable transcendence of rapture with experiences of reward, supplication, and indulgences, activating the gift of lightness and the codon ring of purification to support the manifestation of bhakti and shakti energies through their physical bodies in resonance with their higher self now. Ta Asia into Doe. And the energy transmission is now activated. This is a purification and cleansing process of energetic attachments and connections to the experiences of desire that are not currently serving your highest frequency evolutionary path. Noticing a lot of activity in the emotional body. This is particularly related to how we feel into desire, pleasure, unraveling any rigidness around relationship that we have that is not serving our highest good. This is deeply related to the source of life force energy that courses through your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies. That experience of aliveness and all of the conditioning that we dampen that experience with. Just let those patterns of resistance burn up in a violet flame. I can feel the codon ring activating. This is activating the frequencies that we described in Jupiter, that joy, expansiveness, that childlike playfulness that comes from a free flowing aliveness, energetic pathway. And this transmission right now is nearing 50% completion. So this has been a quite dense area for this process of purification. Notice any sensations in your body if you're feeling a need to stretch or move your body in any particular way. Please feel free to follow that impulse. It's going to assist you with moving out the energies that are not serving you. Now I see there is an acceleration in this purification fire that is burning. Maharata Mueva, Maharata Mueva, Maharata Mueva, Kirashe Hasha, Kirashe Hasha, Kirashe Hasha. Some of you are receiving some high frequency upgrades to your DNA templates currently. it's about 90% completed now. This final process is completing the unraveling and dissolving of minor attachments that are simply inhibiting your own natural flow of energy. And the transmission has now reached the quantum field level of your being. It is commanded in the name of divine loving presence that new templates, new infusions, and new golden streams of Christos Sophia, creator consciousness, in resonance with the clearings and activations completed, are integrated in the best possible way for each person here from their higher self now. Ta Asia and Tadoe. You can imagine a flow of warm, golden liquid light flowing down into the crown of your head and filling up your bodies, infusing your entire being with high frequency energy that comes directly from the source of all that you are, allowing you to integrate the energetic shifts in the best possible way, filling in any space that was created with your own essence. When you're ready, you can wiggle your fingers and toes. Come on back to the 3D and lightly open your eyes and rejoin the room. How are you feeling? Check in with your body. Notice what types of sensations and experience that you had. Excellent. Fernando, feeling great. That's fantastic. Feeling open. Whatever experiences arose for you during the transmission, just take a moment to validate the authenticity of your experience. This is a unique experience. There is no particular way you were supposed to feel during that. Anyone else have any experiences, visions, sensations in their body that you feel like sharing? I understand sometimes you may have that experience and not quite feel or be able to put into words quite what went on. But if you have something to share, I'd love to hear from you just to get a little information about your energetic state. Also, if you have any questions, now is a wonderful time to ask those. Renee says, sleepy. Yeah, so if you happen to drift into a deep layer of consciousness during that transmission, and you are ready, and it is best for your highest good, it is time to come back to the room now and rejoin the conscious breath. Chitra says, what language were you speaking for the commands? Yeah, so there were a few phrases that I spoke in an unusual language. So if you happen to notice that, one of those phrases, ta Asia into Doe, translates roughly as to, as it is spoken, so it is done. And the language is called Anuhazi. It is a language that is not held in the memory of the human race at this current time in terms of our cultural history. It is a language that originates from a prior evolutionary stage that each of us existed in while in a state that we would recognize from our current forms as a spirit form. The Anuhazi language is a creator language in which the frequency and resonance of each tone describes the creation intention that is set in motion through the speaking of it. So the most similar thing we have to this language on the planet at this time are the ancient languages, Sanskrit, ancient Hebrew. There's a couple of other languages that are related where, and for those of you who may know Hebrew, you know that one of the qualities of the written language is that it describes the sound specifically. So this is how it is. It's an evolution of this more original language. Joyce says, I feel very in tune with my body and what's going on with it energetically right now. Beautiful. That extra awareness is wonderful. Very, very nice. So if there's any questions, feel free to ask those right now. Bella, I'm wondering, let's see if I want to grab back I'm reclaiming host from you so I can share my screen for a moment. Bella, how are you feeling?
I'm still yawning a little bit and moving.
Did you have some yawns?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of, I feel it's always moving on a body level for me. And often I actually have to move even during. It's not, even if I'm laying still, I'm probably shaking in some way and sometimes I just like to allow the body to move even during the transmission.
Yeah. For those of you, if you got sleepy and you felt like yawning, this is the body's method for releasing energies that are no longer serving you. So if you're yawning during an energetic transmission, that's simply the metabolism of energetic waste leaving your body. So,
and knowing we are in a collective container, so that it's like kind of not really a separation between me and you. It's like we are in an energetic field and we are all contributing in different ways of the energies in that field, which like I could really feel. And you were mentioning that several times, John, as well, that aspect of like what's going on in the field.
Yeah, so So while each of us may be having a unique experience, not only in a transmission, but in our lives, there is also this energetic interrelationship that is occurring currently in our group between each other, but also in relationship to the rest of humanity and how each of us relates with the collective. So, for some of us that are here, we may be processing energies um, to some extent on behalf of our neighbors and friends and families and loved ones and all of the other people on the planet at this time. So thank you for mentioning that, Bella, because there's never a moment where our energy being is fully separated from the spirit of our collective humanity or from the spirit of nature that exists on planet Earth or the spirit of the cosmos. So all of those things are happening all together. Let's see, one more comment here I want to share. Thank you, Alex. Lots to clear out, feeling the clearing, very deep, very heavy. Felt on the front side, especially in the core. Traveled into your space, John, for a minute. I have a sound mind. I still feel very heavy. Yeah, so as part of our, one of these qualities of our human design, our gene keys, each of us is walking an individual path. And as that path evolves, we can carry specific types of energies in greater densities than others. And that relates particularly to our own evolutionary path. So, in this process of lunar alchemy, there may be some gates or transits going on that are going to cause you to feel a much greater contrast in your well-being. You may feel heavy, you may feel agitated or irritated. It may bring up negative emotions that need to be cleared. And if that is happening for you, um, understand that this is part of your evolutionary process, is to be transmuting these energies. And so even though it may feel uncomfortable, it tells you that for certain you are moving through an evolutionary process into a state of higher resonant frequency with the truth of who you really are inside. So I appreciate your ability to be with any heaviness, to be with any density that you're feeling, or any negative feelings. So, and if you ever have a lingering experience of this following a transmission where you can't seem to shake it, I want you to always feel free to reach out to me um, on Facebook or by email. Just let me know what's going on so I can check on the state of your energy field and see if there's any way that I can assist you with processing out what needs to be released. So thank you. Um, so Bella, we've come around we've been going for a little while. I would love to offer everyone the opportunity to continue with us. Does that feel good to you? Is there anything else that you would like to touch on before we move into kind of a conclusion?
No, for me, it feels so good to stay in my body. And, I feel more space, but I also feel like I'm sitting like deeper into my body. And I know that if I start going into words and speaking an intellect, I'm going to lose some of that. So I'm going to be a little bit selfish and kind of just
Great.
sit in the energy and be mindful when I speak to not speak too fast, because that's often what I do. So,
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's a beautiful example for how to be with our energies. So thank you for that. So while we're doing that, I'm just going to share a little bit about what Bella and I have going on with Lunar Alchemy. We are looking at continuing this process of lunar alchemy um, over over the remainder of the lunar cycles in this lunar year. At least, I mean, actually, Bella and I haven't talked about doing it for a whole year yet, but that's where I'm headed. So I'm hoping she's going to be willing to come along for that whole ride. And it's okay if you don't commit to it right now, Bella. Anyways, um, we're definitely going to be doing this on a weekly basis from starting with tonight and continuing every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. And I'd like to invite you into solar membership with Lunar Alchemy. And that solar part, I wanted to just bring in the idea that we are still working with solar energies and that it is helping by the reflection of the moon and the lunar cycle, it is helping us to be able to bring our soul into deeper expression. So this is going to be a 4-week membership. So each lunar cycle, we want to give you access to 4 live lunar alchemy events with myself and Bella, and you'll also have access to the recordings to replay at any time. So if Tuesday nights aren't good for you, or if you want to be a part of this process and you can't commit to all 4 of the sessions in a lunar cycle, you can still have access to the recording so you can watch that on your own schedule. And by the way, the quantum healings, they're called quantum healings because they're done from within the quantum field, which means that it does not matter if you are present live or if you are watching it on a replay. The transmission frequency is coded to a no time and no space. That's how I'm able to reach you wherever you are on the planet, and also how you can watch at another time and receive the absolute same level of potency as if you were attending live. Of course, each week we're going to be sharing the deeper wisdom on how to make decisions in harmony with the energies you're integrating with the lunar cycles and with the movements of the sun as it's moving through these cosmic energies and bringing in that influence to us. In each session, so for 4 quantum healing transmissions, these help you to harmonize your evolution with the cycles of the moon, meaning the energies that are being reflected from the moon, these cosmic energetic structures that are being activated in your own energetic body, and helping you to increase the frequency of your vibration with every single session, which is going to give you access to new opportunities, new events, and new relationships to fulfill your life purpose. Now, when you go through a process of raising your frequency, the frequency of your vibration, when I say access to new opportunities, new events, and new relationships, it doesn't always mean that you're just going to meet new people and get a new job and move to a new hometown. What it is an expansion of the opportunities for you to explore the expression of those higher frequency expressions that you have access to. And sometimes when you go through processes of quantum healing, what's going to happen is that will draw in cooperative components to your experience to facilitate your exploration of these new aspects of your being that you are tapping into. So there are some cases where you will be meeting new people and having brand new opportunities arise in your experience. So this is what the solar membership consists of, and this will be done, like I said, weekly, every Tuesday at 7 p.m. And what we are asking to begin this month is a $29 initial payment, which will give you access to the members area, access to tonight's full recording, and access to each of the next 3 Lunar Alchemy sessions, which still remain in our current lunar cycle. The lunar cycle began with the new moon on February 11th, and it's going to complete sometime in, I think it's May 9th is when that ends. Anyways, we're gonna have 3 more sessions in addition to this one. And then every 4 weeks, so following that, there's a renewing membership fee every 4 weeks on the Monday before the first Lunar Alchemy session of the next lunar cycle. So that would essentially be 4 weeks from yesterday. And that renewing membership will be $49. And you will continue to have access to all of the recordings. So for instance, if tonight was a really heavy activation for you, after a week goes by, you may find that the next Lunar Alchemy session feels fairly easy. You're feeling good. Maybe you want to revisit tonight's session and go through that transmission again so that you can lighten up those energies and feel more in harmony with that process. So that's what we're looking at here for solar membership in Lunar Alchemy. And I'm really excited to build a group of people who are dedicated to this process. Of course, if this is something that you can do on every lunar cycle, we are really happy to have you along for that journey. If something different is going to work for you and you want to be involved in another way, maybe you can do 1 lunar cycle or a couple of lunar cycles. All of that is really up to you. But I've posted the link there for any of you who are interested, and you will receive an email following tonight's webinar session that's going to give you access to this as well. But that will connect you directly to the opt-in for solar membership, and you can start that right away. I'll be posting the recording of the full recording in that members area. In there is also one of the introductory sessions that kind of lays out all of the influences, the I Ching, the human design, the gene keys, the archetypes, all of these influences that we're working with for Lunar Alchemy as a process. So that's the invitation for solar membership, and we hope that you will join us in that journey. We're going to continue to share elements of Lunar Alchemy in a variety of ways because we want to continue to get this possibility for evolution into the world and to grow the people's awareness of this possibility to engage with these cosmic energies, to receive quantum healings, to begin to contemplate their own energies as they are moving through us with some insight that we can draw from these various modalities. So I really look forward to continuing this process with you and hope that you will join both of us in that journey. So that's the Lunar Alchemy for tonight that I have. Are there any questions about any of that? About how to become a member of the solar membership, questions about what we talked about tonight, questions about the transmission, anything at all, feel free to type that on there or raise your hand.
And if you're watching on Facebook, you can just actually type in the comments, and then we will get to it after. So, and even if you're watching now and you don't have a question right now, we were live in Jinkies and Human Design for you who are on here, so the conversation can also continue there.
Beautiful, Fernando. Thank you for joining from Buenos Aires. That's wonderful. I love seeing this message going worldwide. So, Fernando, I appreciate your being here tonight, because now you are the energetic carrier of this transmission of fire energy, um, and that's going to emanate from you all the way throughout your own place where you are in the world. So thank you for joining us from there. Awesome. Thank you, Alex, for joining. I look forward to continuing this journey with you, and all, being able to share in this evolutionary progress that we're engaging in here. Really, really exciting. Awesome. Any other questions? Well, Bella, I want to thank you for sharing all of your expertise tonight. It is so clear to me that I have so much to learn from you still um, about really everything that we're doing, um, because there's so much depth available, and it seems so clear that you have a lot of insight into that process. So I'm really looking forward to sharing this wisdom with everyone and getting to be a witness for all of that expertise that you're bringing. So thank you for sharing that tonight, and definitely look forward to hearing more the next time around, which of course is going to be next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. So if you decide to join the solar membership, you'll get to join us live, and we will be doing that next Tuesday at 7 p.m. I also want to thank each of you for being a part of this process tonight. This is our third Lunar Alchemy session. The first two sessions have been posted on social media, on YouTube. I'll include the links for you to access those. Tonight's session, some of the content will be kept exclusive for our members, including the quantum transmission and some of the discussion. But we will post elements of tonight's discussion in places that you can revisit on YouTube and on social media. So, anything else, Bella, that you feel inspired to share?
Yeah, so important to take the discussion into experience. And that's why I'm here with you, because for me, that's the role modeling that is important. This is not just a discussion. This is not about being an expert. This is not about theory. This is about the experience, like deeply embodying what we are speaking about. So for me, that's also why I want to come back every week. And in that coming back, I also feel like there is a discernment, there's an awareness of like, okay, what happened after, as I was going into my world after the transmission? What did I notice? What's maybe shifting? What's burning off? Am I more aware of the intensity? Am I a little bit more staying with it? So that is so important for me, and that opportunity to come back and be in that field where we are continuing together. So that's what's so exciting. I could speak forever about it, but if it's not about embodiment, then it's so superficial in a way, and it doesn't actually interest me.
Beautiful. Well, I really appreciate your commitment to being embodied. Both of us have a human design profile that includes the 6th line, which is one of those lines that, you know, you can get lost out in spiritual topics because our being is so connected to this relationship with the divine. And the fact that Bella is bringing this commitment to embodiment and being present here as we are now, rather than spinning off into the possibilities of spiritual nature, that we could allow ourselves to sort of become unhinged. I really feel that that's an important quality for our evolutionary process, for really everybody who's in a body right now, is to be with that body, to experience life through that body. And I'm really glad that you are going to be able to continue to remind me to engage in that process. I'm also committed to that level of embodiment that you're describing. And I just I love having that reflection that I can respond to that brings me back into that awareness. So
Yes.
thank you all for coming tonight. I think that concludes our Lunar Alchemy on the Shadows of Fire. I hope you enjoyed tonight's wisdom that was shared, that you were able to feel that in your body and in your experience and relate to it. Please feel free to reach out to either of us on social media. Please connect with us. When you have thoughts about Lunar Alchemy or ideas, please join the membership so that you can engage with us. This is going to be an opportunity that you have as long as we are doing this. This is not a one-time thing. We want you and your friends and your neighbors and everyone to benefit from this process of lunar alchemy. So I really look forward to meeting you in the next Lunar Alchemy session if you choose to be a member, and also in the ways that we can interact on social media through Lunar Alchemy. We will be creating a Facebook group. So if you want to become a member of that Facebook group, you can stay up to date on the topics that we'll be covering each week, as well as the, just how lunar alchemy is evolving and what we have access to, what we're seeing from it. So if you're interested in lunar alchemy and want to connect with us there, I will be sending out the opportunity to connect to that Facebook group in a future email. So thank you all again. Have a beautiful night. I'm sending divine loving presence to each of your hearts from my own inner heart. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.